I spent every moment dreaming up this world that I was going to be superstar pro wrestler.
The stirrup in that one, undeterred.
I was taught from day one, you have to invest in yourself. Early 2016, I was in NXT tapings every other week.
Why didn't they sign you?
I was a 5'2" brunette, and there was a ton of us.
By the time you got to Impact, people knew who you were and they knew what you were all about.
Going into TNA, I don't even love wrestling anymore, so if we're gonna make this work, it's on my terms.
What made you fall back in love with it?
TNA did.
You debut AEW in New Jersey?
Just coincidence.
What did it mean to share the ring with Mickie James?
That entire feud was career defining for me. I gotta win the AEW Women's World Championship.
So is it that it's just coincidental that you debut in AEW in New Jersey?
Just coincidence.
Was it? I mean, you're from New Jersey.
Yes.
Amazing. And why not debut there? But was it just that was how the schedule lined up?
Honestly, that's how the schedule lined up. And when I spoke to Tony Khan before I signed, I had said to him, like, this kind of seems like we're on the same page with a lot of things. If I was to debut, the first Dynamite of the New Year is in New Jersey. And that would be like a dream come true for me.
So how long, like when was that conversation and how long did it take for you to make the debut?
That conversation was like mid-December.
Oh, that's quick.
Yeah, it only took like 3 weeks to like get this deal done.
So you have that conversation, and then do you find out like, all right, now I'm debuting, I can look forward to this, or is it like a last minute thing?
No, it was a last minute thing. I found out, so we had that conversation, and I pitched that idea, signed the contract on the 1st, and it was like, okay, we have like 2 days, and I haven't heard anything. I was really upset because I thought like, it's Tuesday afternoon, like, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 5 p.m., Sanjay Dutt called me and was like, we'd love to have you in Newark. Is that doable? And I was like, yeah, of course it's doable. So yeah, it was literally like a 24-hour turnover.
And what a reaction.
Yeah.
Like there are very few surprises in wrestling. And maybe it's because that came together so quickly. I feel like people were pretty surprised.
Yeah. Well, I also think that there was this piece of like Mercedes Moné was... Like, it was rumored she was coming to AEW. Yeah. Like, no one really knew when she would show up, if she would show up. So they thought this is the first Dynamite of the New Year. She might show up. So I don't think anyone really expected me to be the first signing of the new year, which might be a bad thing, but turned out to be a really great thing.
Were you able to at least tell your family, like, hey, don't tell anybody else?
Yeah.
But I'm going to be there.
Yes, I told Steve's parents, my in-laws, and then my dad and my stepmom came.
Oh, so they were there?
Yeah, they were front row.
Amazing. And it's, I feel like you get put into a big storyline right away, which was amazing. It wasn't like, hey, Deonna's coming, we'll see what happens. It's like, boom, we're going to make something that's like impactful.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool because I didn't go in with any expectations. So I didn't know what I was doing until I got there, and I was like wheeled into TK's office on a wheelchair under like a tarp. Like, so no one, it was crazy.
What?
Yes. Like they didn't want anyone to see who it was. And I feel like once they got there, everyone kind of put pieces together and the girls knew it was me, but they wanted it to be super top secret. Like I wasn't picked up to go to the venue until like 5 or 6 p.m. Then yeah, I was kind of hidden in Tony's office for a little bit. And then they gave me my own separate locker room. And I felt like, this is just me. This is kind of really silly. Like,
or you're like, I could get used to this.
No, I was so uncomfortable. And I was like, can I feel bad asking, can someone bring me food? Where do I go to the bathroom? I felt very uncomfortable. But yeah, it was just so like, I didn't have any expectations. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't ask what I was going to be doing. I was just kind of like, this is where I want to be. This is my number one choice. And if we can make this happen, Jersey would be great, but I'm in this for the long haul. So you tell me what you want. Right
before your music hits, are you sitting there backstage going, I hope they react?
Yeah, I'm such a big crier. Like in like a moments of like anxiety, especially when it comes to wrestling, I just like break down and cry. It's the weirdest thing ever. I was so fine all day until like Mariah wrestled Queen Aminata right before I went out there, and their whole match I was like in the back hysterical crying. And Madison Rayne, who's like my best friend in real life, is like, why are you crying? And I'm like, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Had this happened before?
This happens all the time.
What is it? You know, do you not worry that maybe I'm going to still be crying by the time I get out there?
Sometimes, like I kind of was.
Or it might look like I'm still crying.
I think. Why
are your eyes so red?
Yes, that night it looked like I was still crying for sure, and I literally was. And then I saw my dad's big head in the front row, and I was like, oh, and now I'm crying again.
What's the feeling? Is it overwhelming gratitude?
I think so. I think it's like, I spent my whole life wanting to do this, right? I spent every moment from the time I was 9 years old till I'm 30 now, like dreaming up this world that I was going to be a superstar pro wrestler and I was going to like make changes in women's wrestling. And I think, it's just like overwhelming gratitude and like partially like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this, or like wanting it to go well, and just, all those like mix of emotions. And I'm not like the most emotional person in my like real personal life, and it just comes out in wrestling. So I think it's just anxiety and gratitude and wanting to perform well and wanting to do well and wanting the crowd to react well, all those things.
Is it also like wanting to live up to the expectations that you've set for yourself?
Definitely. And I think even leading up to that moment, like I had an incredible time in TNA and Impact it for me. I did so many incredible things that really led up to being able to talk to all the companies, being able to talk to WWE, getting to talk to Tony Khan, and kind of using that platform that TNA had given me to create a new future for myself. And like not wanting to disappoint anyone, of like, we're not taking a chance on Deonna, but we're giving her this platform and it's huge and she's coming in and she's making a statement. And I never want that to not be what Tony Khan wants it to be, not what my opponent wants it to be, not what the fans know me for.
Do you remember the first moment where, oh my gosh, I'm actually doing this? Wrestling seems like a viable career option for me.
My 8th professional wrestling match was a TNA pay-per-view, Knockouts Knockdown 2014 against Brooke Tessmacher.
Man.
My 8th match in front of an audience. And that was the moment that I was like, can we curse? Holy shit, what is going on? Like, and I was 19 years old, I think, at the time. Like, I was a baby, and the person sitting in front of you today is not the person I was so shy. I was so like out of my comfort zone and out of my element. Like, I just didn't know who I was meant to be in this world yet. So that was the moment, looking around that, the Impact Zone, like, holy crap. This is like, what is a hard cam? Like, what do those people do? And I didn't even, like, if you go back and watch that match, like, I didn't even body slam her properly. There were so many things that was just like, this girl is green as grass and she doesn't belong here.
But they clearly saw something in you in those other 7 matches that you had.
Luckily, Rob Strauss, Robbie E,
Yeah.
is who he was at TNA, helped, like, my trainer helped me. They grew up together, they trained together, so he would pop into our training school. And he obviously, like, knew they were doing Knockouts Knockdown, was friendly with Christy Hemme. They needed a last-minute girl, and he was like, I know someone who could do that.
But think of all the opportunities you got early on.
Yeah.
So you're talking about this happening in 2014 in your first match. You also made some appearances that same year in WWE. Mm-hmm. With all of that coming together, are you going, this is all happening so quickly, I can't even believe it.
Yeah. I mean, way too quickly. Like, I wasn't ready for those opportunities. So it's funny because, so that happened, that match with Brooke Tessmacher. Literally 2 weeks later, I was asked to go be an extra and be a rosebud at WWE. So I was, drove up to Hartford for Monday Night Raw 2 weeks later, and it was just like, again, holy crap. Like, it's all happening way too fast, and I'm almost not ready for it.
But then also being involved in those big moments, being involved in those companies, is there also a part of it where you're expecting, like, this could turn into something? Yeah,
I then immediately got opportunities in NXT. And that's when I really thought, like, oh, this could, like, being signed is like a real viable thing right now. Like late 2015, early 2016, I was in NXT at the tapings like every other week. I was there 24/7, like flying myself, actively going into debt so I could be in Orlando, Florida to wrestle for NXT. And that was when I was like, oh, like, I think I could take kind of the critique I'm getting. I could keep training. I can, go to Japan. I was working with Ring of Honor at the time. Like, all of these little pieces are really starting to come together. And who the Virtuosa, Deonna Purrazzo's like early stages, who I was becoming then, could be someone who could get signed.
But you were flying yourself there?
Yes.
Was this just the idea of like, put yourself into the situation, like make them so they can't say no?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I was taught from day one, like, you have to invest in yourself. And so for me, that was just like, if I'm getting the opportunity, they keep calling me back. At the same time, I was asked to keep going to Monday Night Raw and going to SmackDown. And if I could keep showing up and they can't get rid of me, then maybe they won't get rid of me.
Why didn't they sign you?
That's a really great question. I don't know. Kind of always the answer was that, like, I was a 5'2" brunette and there was a ton of us on the indies. And it was just like, how do you go make yourself marketable? How do you become more than a 5'2" brunette? At the time, that was like a really difficult thing to be told because it's like, well, I can't change my height and like, I can change my hair color, but like for me, the wrestler I am is the wrestler I am.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you tell me you want me to be more Italian, you want me to learn Italian, I could try to do that. Like you tell me something more than my physical appearance. And for a long time they couldn't. And yeah, after my tryout, I did really well. I got all positive feedback. That was February 2016. They were just like, we have too many of you right now, and go out there and keep making a name for yourself and maybe it'll come full circle.
But when they're saying like, give us something more, and then they're not saying like, do more of this or do more of that, it's just like, you show us something.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to take that feedback?
For me, like early on, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going to Ring of Honor. I'm going to keep going to TNA. I'm going to, like, I put myself in a position where I was constantly on a television program. So, you know, I was a mainstay in the women's division at Ring of Honor from day one. So I was never going to stop doing that. TNA would call every once in a while. I would go do that. Like, you are going to see me on a stage somewhere. And I don't want you to, like, ever forget Deonna Purrazzo. But then I got an opportunity to go to Japan, so I did that. I went to Australia, went to the UK and did indies. Like, for me, it was just like, okay, well, you said no there, so I'm going to take the next best thing.
All right, shout out to Viore, not just for making the most comfortable and versatile clothing on the planet, but for sponsoring this episode of the show. It is no secret that I like to wear a good plain black t-shirt during a lot of these interviews. Sometimes a plain white one, on occasion a plain gray one, but I just love a good solid t-shirt. And the Ponto Performance tee, that's what I'm wearing right now, which is insanely flexible and stretchy. It's part of Viore's Dream Knit collection. The cool thing about this is, this is something that you can wear during an interview. It's also something that I work out in all the time. It kind of like allows you to do both. Like I was talking about, it's so versatile. Also, check out the Ponto Performance Joggers. These are so comfortable with their 4-way performance stretch. Great for just lounging around or great for working out in. And this is something that I wear around the house all the time. I also wear to the airport all the time because I just want to be comfortable when I fly. I have a closet full of Viore clothing and I know that you're going to love it too. Check out the link down below in the pinned comments, viore.com/CVV. They're giving you 20% off your first purchase. This is the most versatile and comfortable clothing on the planet. Just look at that 4-way stretch there. It's going out of the frame with the 4-way stretch. Viore.com/CVV.
You leveled up.
Yeah.
What was it that made you level up? Because by the time you got to Impact, like, people knew who you were and they knew what you were all about.
I think when I got to Impact, I had just been released from NXT. And I think that whole process, again, was a continuation of like, you know, you're great, you can wrestle, but like, show us something else. And no one could tell me what that something else was. So again, I invested in myself. I produced vignettes of my own and pitched them to them. I was doing all the extra ring. I was like training some of the new girls and helping with stuff with them. Like, there was nothing that, in my head, I want to create boxes. I want to say, okay, I can do this for myself. I could do this for myself. I could do this for myself. And that way, if this doesn't work out, then I did everything I could to make it work out. And if it doesn't, then not that I can't accept responsibility for it, but like, hey, I did all that I could do.
Yeah.
And so in NXT, that was kind of my mentality at the end, was like, I've done everything you've asked me to do. I changed my hair color 1,000,000 times. I've changed my gear design. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on that. I've produced my own vignettes, and this just isn't working out. So when they released me, I think it was a combination of like, I was done changing myself for other people. I was done accepting the answer no. But then also I had just worked out all of the kinks of like, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to present myself, and like, take it or leave it. And going into TNA Impact at the time, when I spoke to Scott D'Amore the first time, I was like, I have an entire character synopsis. This is how I see the Virtuosa. This is who I'm giving to you if I come in there. And if you want her, great. And if you don't, that's okay too.
Yeah.
I was just in such a space of like, I don't even love wrestling anymore. So if we're going to make this work, it's on my terms.
Wow.
Or I'm not going to make wrestling work anymore. And that's just it.
You've got nothing to lose then.
Yeah, I really had nothing to lose when I walked in the door.
So what's a virtuosa?
So by definition, a virtuosa is someone who possesses outstanding technical ability. Usually it relates to like a pianist or a violinist or some kind of artist. And I just thought, what a pretty Italian word. Early on, I thought like, oh, it's kind of hard to say. Maybe people won't be able to pronounce it. But as time went on, I just felt like the audience understood it, the way I presented myself, my music, the outfits. It all, to me, professional wrestling is an art. So why couldn't a virtuosa or a virtuoso relate to pro wrestling?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's like, you're crafting your masterpiece almost. Like every single time you go out to the ring, you're showing like, this is why I have this moniker.
Yeah. And for me, like my whole entire, every move I do relates back to the Fujiwara armbar. So my masterpiece is breaking your arm. And when I hook in the Venus de Milo at the end, it's done. My masterpiece is created. So really, if you look at my entire body of work, you look at the entire moniker, the Virtuosa, it makes sense by just the simple like Webster dictionary.
If you had fallen out of love with wrestling then, when you got released from WWE, what made you fall back in love with it?
TNA did. And all the girls that were there, all of the management, Gail Kim, Madison Rain, like the entire environment that they cultivate there just really made me like, this feels like home. This feels like I belong here. It feels like everyone wants to work for each other. There's no drama. There's no like fighting over spots. There's no stabbing each other in the back. Like this is, I hate to call it that, but everyone calls it this, like the land of misfit toys. It is in terms of like, we've all been rejected by other places, other people, and we come here and we have a chip on our shoulder and we do the work for each other. And that was the environment that I was looking for. And it just didn't click until there.
Was there a reason that you didn't want to stay there?
I just felt like at the end of last year, like I kind of had done everything. I'd been a 3-time Knockouts World Champion. I had been a Knockouts World Tag Team Champion. I had carried the brand and become the Reina de Reinas champion in Mexico with AAA. I had went to Ring of Honor. I had main evented AEW Dynamite representing Impact Wrestling. Like what else was there for me to do here that would continue to level me up? Just felt like I've worked with everybody in the locker room. I'm comfortable here. It's time now to get out of my comfort zone.
But that's the thing. So you then go into the unknown, right? You bet on yourself. You know there's other opportunities out there, but you're hoping that they'll come for you. So you leave there and you go, let's see what happens here.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was, again, what I was hoping for, but it's exactly what I got with my AEW debut.
Yeah, it's like, what you had planned for ended up happening.
Yeah.
But that is taking a chance. It's betting on yourself.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of just what I've had to like learn is like, I could take this piece of advice and this piece of advice and this worked for this person, so I could kind of copy that in my own way and just like watch the successful people around me and how they've always bet on themselves or they continue to level up or elevate their character and tweak this and tweak that. And if I can do that for myself, if I could use their template for me, then hopefully I can do the same thing and be successful.
When you were in Impact, you had that 30-minute Iron Woman match with Jordynne Grace.
Yeah.
So when they present that to you, how do you start to plan out what that match is going to look like?
Well, we were supposed to do a no disqualification match at first. And so at the time, what was great about Impact was we were taping like every 2 weeks in Nashville. It was still the pandemic, so it was closed studio. And we would get creative ahead of time. So what Jordynne and I were told we were doing was we were going to have our Slammiversary match. And then the next day at the next set of tapings for 2 weeks down the road or whatever it was, we would do a no disqualification match. So leading into that, we planned for like a hardcore, like what are cool, intricate, different things we could do with weapons.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the match at Slammiversary happened and it went over so well. That and the internet loved it. Like just the entire reaction was so good to it from a company standpoint and from a like social media standpoint that they were like, we need to do something bigger than like a 10-minute no disqualification match. We're going to do a first ever Iron Woman match. And when they told Jordynne and I literally at the beginning of the next day, like 9 a.m., we were both like, what the fuck? Like we were so beat up that we had 17 or 18 minutes on the pay-per-view, like beat that crap out of each other. And now you want us to do it again, but for like double the time. Like Jordynne Grace is one of the hardest hitting people I've ever been in the ring with. Physically, like emotionally, she just like brings out such a different animal in every one of her opponents. Like you need to be 100% to be in the ring with Jordynne Grace. And so neither of us were 100% at that time. And so going in, we were just like, how do we even like reframe and reset our mind to do what we did again, but 30 minutes.
And then how do you work on the pacing when there's no audience there?
It's so hard because you like almost hear it in your head. Like we did at Slammiversary, like a spot where it was like, this wasn't it, but like, people do arm drag, sweep, double drop kick, and then you stand off.
Yes.
It's like a very generic.
And then the crowd cheers, yes.
And And you expect that reaction and you plan for that reaction, but then it wasn't there, but we could still hear it in our heads. So we just kind of had to like go with that. Like, okay, we're just going to let that moment breathe and get right back into it. So yeah, it was really hard to plan that pacing of like, they would react here and they would react here. So let's just give it those beats. Then there wasn't real commercial breaks because it was taped. So it honestly didn't end up being a full 30 minutes. It was more like 20, 24, 25,
Nobody
whatever it
needs
was.
to know that.
Right. But it was so like, okay, we don't even need to work through commercial breaks. So that was nice. Like they really, because it was such a last minute decision and because it was like, we just killed each other at this pay-per-view. Like we could take our time and take breaths where we needed them to be.
Does Jordynne know she hits hard or does she just get caught up in the moment?
She knows she hits hard, but she also does get caught up in the moment. And I will say like, she's one of the few people that I can get caught up in the moment with. Like, I love it. Like, I'm like, you want to fight? Then we'll really fight tonight. Like, I love that about her.
Oh, is that the thing? So she hits hard, hoping that you'll hit her hard?
I think she just gets carried away. I don't think she knows her own strength in terms of like the gym, in terms of how much weight she could lift, but I don't think she knows her own strength in the moment in the wrestling ring. Until then she's met with her match. She'd be like, bitch. And I'm like, bitch. There was one time we were backstage. Jazz was at TNA with us. And I had just wrestled Jazz. It was like career versus title. And so Jazz technically retired. And Jazz was like, Deonna's so light. Deonna's this, Deonna's that. And Jordynne was like, excuse me? And I was like, no. Jazz doesn't touch me. So I don't touch Jazz. You want to really fight? Then I'll really fight. It's all dependent on the opponent.
Then do you find out after like the first lockup or the first exchange that you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what we're doing here.
Yeah, you could tell kind of like right away.
What did it mean to be able to share the ring with Mickie James?
Oh my gosh. That whole entire feud was, I think, career defining for me. I think after I worked with Jordynne, I kind of went into a phase of like working like, pay-per-view to pay-per-view programs with a lot of the girls on the Impact roster. And when Mickie came in, it was Slammiversary. And she was making her return after being released from WWE. And I think it was just the exact opponent I needed. An organic babyface with a history at this company who's also like, at that point, she has nothing else to prove. Like, she's just here because she wants to be here, because she wants to continue wrestling, because she wants to continue to better and change women's wrestling. And my character at that time was like, well, I'm the best. And like, who are you? Like just so arrogant and so like, this is my championship and my company and my title. And just the chemistry we had organically was just everything I needed in those moments, really to sink my teeth in and define who the Virtuosa was.
Do you think there's something you picked up, even if it was just by osmosis through working with Mickie, that you then applied to other matches later?
I think just the way like she carries herself. She has such like a clear vision of the story she wants to tell and, the shit she'll take from people. Like, she is a badass woman who knows what she wants and knows what she's worth and will settle for nothing less. And I think that if every woman could get to that point and accept nothing less than they deserve and fight for what they think women deserve, women's wrestling would be in a completely different place.
But that sounds like you now, especially when you were describing the 2014 version of you.
Yeah.
That sounds like you now. Like, you are very confident in who you are. You know who you are in the ring and out of the ring. And maybe it took 10 years to get to this point, but you know exactly what you're about.
Absolutely. And yeah, it took 10 years to get to this point because, like I said, the girl who started wrestling at 18 years old, fresh out of high school, had no idea what she would be capable of. And the woman who can even sit on this microphone and talk to you and look you in the eye didn't exist, 13 years ago.
And what did it take to get there?
I think being told no. I think being successful and taking advantage of the people around me, learning from the people around me, and then applying those lessons. I mean, those 3.5, almost 4 years at Impact changed my entire career. And I don't think had I had those 4 years and been as successful as I was, I could stand here today and be like, oh, no, I'm worth more. Or, oh, no, like, I have more to offer. The proof is in the pudding. So you can't tell me if you don't give me the microphone, I can't go out there and cut a promo, because I can. You can't tell me if you were to give me 30 minutes, I couldn't handle it, because I can. And I know those things now. And no matter where I go in my career after that, like, no one could take that from me.
When we go back to the early days in WWE, look at the people you were in the ring with.
Yeah.
Like, you were in the ring early with Nia Jax and Asuka and Bayley, and there's a whole bunch of other people I'm forgetting there, but
Yeah.
they're not long matches, but you're in the ring with them and you have the ability to learn from them, and they're there. And I think it levels you up.
Oh gosh, absolutely. The match that I had with Bayley in NXT, I don't remember the time we were given for the match, but literally right before we went out of the curtain, they were like, "Okay, you got to cut a minute." And she was like, "No problem," and came to me and was like, "Let's do this, this, and this." And I was just like, "Whatever you want to do, okay," And she talked me through the whole match in the ring, and like there was even one point I remember I didn't hear what she said, so I just like went to what my next thing was, and like she just went with it. Like just even those moments teach you like, oh, if she can handle that and just go out there and like that's no problem because she's trained to do that. Like I want to get to that level. I want to be so comfortable that nothing can faze me, that no one could throw me off my game.
What about being in the ring with Nia Jax?
I love Nia. And she has always been so like giving to her opponents. And like, so I remember it was like, I think her second match in NXT after she debuted that it was me.
Man.
And I was intimidated because I'm like, oh gosh, like she's new, I'm new, like this could be really bad. And she was just like, Sarah Amato helped produce, Triple H was in the ring helping produce. Like she was just such a sponge to all the things. So like, I was just like, whatever you need me to do. And she was like, can you do this? Can you do this? Like gave me a couple things way more than I needed at that time. And then we got to do it again when she re-debuted the Raw after Mania in 2020. And it was like so comfortable because we had known each other then. We had done this even then she gave me too much. They made us redo the match. I think she's such a great person. And like to be in those moments with her was really like exciting for me. Like I like to see that development and I was really grateful to be a part of it.
Hey, any opportunity to save a dollar or two in this economy is a good thing. That's why this episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. That's $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Rocket Money will even help negotiate lower bills for you. That's what they did for me. Sometimes up to 20% lower. They'll scan through your bills, see if there's an opportunity, and then they handle everything, and what you get is a lower bill. So stop wasting money on things you don't use and cancel your unwanted subscriptions using Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/CVV. Just see how much they might be able to save you. That's rocketmoney.com/CVV.
When you were a kid growing up in New Jersey, what made you think you could do this for a living?
Oh gosh, I saw the women do it. And like
who?
Trish Stratus, Lita, Mickie, Jazz, Jacqueline, Victoria. I saw them do it. And like they were fighting so hard for women to get TV time, women to have actual storylines. Like Trish Stratus was like, is my idol, still is. Like,
have you met her?
Yes, finally. And I cried and I cried.
Coming full circle on the crying here.
Yeah. They just fought so hard. And then to see what that turned into like the Divas era. And that's really when I was like deep into like my wrestling fandom. I just thought like women are way more than that. Like women have more value than Playboy pillow fights or, like bikini contests and dance offs. And, like I just really saw that and was like, that's not what it used to be. Even if the wrestling wasn't great back then, like you still saw aggressive women fighting. And this isn't I don't like this. And I think women could be more than this. And I want to change that.
Then what gave you the courage to step into the ring?
I don't think I didn't ever have the courage. Like I always knew when I decided like at 9 years old, like I'm going to be a professional wrestler and nothing deterred me from that.
But doesn't everyone go, okay, now what's your real aspiration?
Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm going to be a wrestler. I had backup plans. Like I had this ultimate dream. I was going to go to the University of Kentucky and be on the co-ed cheer team and be a national cheerleading champion. But then I was also going to train at OVW with Rip Rogers. Like that was my ultimate, like that's what I'm going to do. The cheer thing obviously didn't work out, but I got to train with Rip Rogers at OVW. And so I had this grand plan. I mean, at 15 years old, like I was printing off paperwork. There was a wrestling school like 30 minutes from my house. And I said to my parents, like, when I get a car at 16, like, I can drive myself and they'll take me at 16. Like, I just need you to sign the paperwork. And they were like, no, absolutely not. Like they were not on board. But my mom did say, when you're 18 and you can have a job and you can pay for this yourself, and if it's still something you want to do, then by all means, you go for it. So that's what I did. I turned 18. I graduated high school. And that December, I was wrestling training.
Wow. What was the job you had to save up the money to go to wrestling school?
I worked at Abercrombie Kids.
Does it smell like the same cologne there too?
Yeah, I could still smell it.
Fierce?
I don't know what it was called. I have no idea. But if I get a waft of it like in the mall or something, I'm still like, ooh.
The crazy thing at the mall is you can smell it from like 7 stores away.
Yeah. Luckily, I worked in the back, so I folded the clothes. So I didn't have to smell it all the time. But yeah.
Can you still fold the clothes like that?
Probably.
Probably.
If I really tried, yeah.
I mean, you feel like it's maybe ingrained into you.
Yes. Yeah.
From the time that you started wrestling school to the time you had your first match, what was the timeline there?
I think it was about a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm still working a job to pay to go to wrestling school?
Yeah.
Still working at Abercrombie Kids?
I think so. I don't remember. It must have been. I don't remember another job, but yeah.
But this is the thing I love about wrestling so much is it's this thing leads to that thing that leads to that thing. It's this brick lays upon this brick that lays upon this brick that now makes you the person that is sitting in front of us right now.
Yeah.
When you look at everything that's happened since you debuted, look at all the people you've been able to work with.
Yeah.
And like all of these things have built upon itself. Where does it go from here in AEW? Who are the people you haven't worked with yet?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Chris Statlander. Very briefly, a few weeks ago, I worked with Willow Nightingale, but I think she's just such an organic babyface that would be great for like a program with the real heel Virtuosa. Sky Blue when she's healthy to come back. Mercedes Moné, of course. I just think our roster continues to grow, and everyone it's like, I think especially at AEW, but just wrestling in general now moves so fast. So I think that like if, Camille just debuted with Mercedes not too long ago. I think Camille is amazing. I'd love to like actually wrestle her. We've done like one little thing together ever. There's so many people on our roster.
Yeah, what's going on in wrestling right now? It feels like it's cool for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's on every single night, right?
Yeah,
so like
it is.
Doesn't matter what you're a fan of or what style of wrestling you're a fan of. I mean, there's just like something for everybody right now on every channel. And so how could you deny not liking just at least one bit of it?
It really is like the ultimate buffet right now. You've got like you said, every night of the week, you've got a little bit of something that you can choose from. Whether that's men's wrestling or women's wrestling, it's just so we're at such a good spot right now. And I'm saying that as a fan, like it's cool to be able to turn on the TV and see something that you like every night. Yeah.
And I think as a worker's perspective, like there's so many opportunities and places to work right now.
Yeah.
You know,
for you and your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. To my husband's just sitting off camera, like, to see what he's doing in TNA and to see the people he's, working with and the friendships he's making and the stories he's getting to tell, like it's really exciting that he gets to do that there, and I also get to be successful here. Chelsea Green is my best friend. To see her absolutely thriving and being her like real, true, authentic self on television every week is so fun for me because there's so many people that I'm so close to now that I feel like, well, if it can't be me being successful, I'd want it to be them. And they are being successful while I also get to be successful. So it's just this like really cool like phase of life right now.
It's really fun to boo Chelsea right now. She's not really like that in real life.
But she is crazy. She is like, she comes up with these like crazy one-liners or her facial expressions or like, if she has a drink or two, you never know what's going to come out of her mouth. Like she genuinely is that silly and that fun that right now on TV, you're not supposed to like it. But I think organically everyone does like it.
Do you remember the first time you met Chelsea?
I do. We were sitting at a Mellow Mushroom in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, right after, it must have been WrestleCade. And there was a girl sitting between us, but a group of us went out for pizza. And across this girl, we were so rude now that I'm thinking about it. We're just like chit-chatting back and forth, like, well, I did this and I know this person and you know this person and da-da-da-da-da. And we have this moment of like, did we just become best friends?
Yep.
Yes, we did. And it's so funny because like 2 or 3 years ago, we went to Mellow Mushroom after a WrestleCade in Winston-Salem with Matt Cardona. And we were like, is this where we became best friends? It was.
What about the first time you met Steve? And I was so surprised when Steve came by here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to see you,
babe.
Steve. Yes.
We actually we tell everyone this story about how we met because we grew up like 30 minutes from each other. And we didn't meet until 2018 when I went to NXT in Florida. And he had messaged me like, hey, my mom works, his mom's a nurse. My mom works with so-and-so that went to high school with your mom. Like, do you know that person?
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I don't, but like, let me ask my mom. And that's kind of how, like, at least a friendship started between us, because it was like, oh, wow, and this person helped get you into wrestling, and that person helped me get into wrestling, and oh, you know this indie guy from Jersey, and I worked with, like, it was just, if you believe in fate, I believe we're fate. Like, we were meant to meet each other when we met each other, because our lives are so weirdly interconnected, and we would have never known.
When you added each other to Facebook, you probably had, 74 friends in common or something like that?
If my husband had a Facebook.
Oh. It's time to get a Facebook, Steve.
He is so, like, would be in Alaska with no phone if he wasn't a pro wrestler. Like, he's so
Well, maybe
off the
that's
grid.
the retirement plan for you guys. Maybe not Alaska. I don't know.
No, the retirement plan is, like, buy 5 acres of land and, like, rescue dogs. That's our retirement plan.
That sounds like you can do that without even retiring.
Yeah.
You could do that in, I don't know, maybe not Florida.
You can do it in Florida, actually.
Yeah?
There's land in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in the middle, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't know. Yeah, okay.
It's doable.
Then
It's
this is the
doable.
plan.
That's the plan.
Okay, great.
I hope you're on board with the plan, babe.
It could be Alaska, Florida,
Yeah.
either way.
Yeah.
You guys were both at the top of your game in Impact at the same time. I loved seeing all the headlines that you guys were a power couple.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think we are, like, inside wrestling and outside wrestling. We have so many, like, real life ambitions and real life, like, interests that have nothing to do with wrestling. Like, obviously Steve's a veteran, so advocation for our veterans is really important to us, and stuff like that we're getting into outside of wrestling makes us a real life power couple. But to have that moment at Rebellion last year, where he was in, like, the semi-main event and I was in the main event, and we both won world championships on the same night. To do that together was just another career defining moment. That is, like, when we're 80 and we get to tell our grandchildren that, like, how amazing is that going to feel?
That's got to be a first.
Yeah. It wasn't, actually. We thought it was.
Who?
Sue Young and Rich Swann won world championships. It was Bound for Glory 2020, the same night. But I guess on screen, we're not even together on screen, but they're so completely opposite characters that I just don't think anyone put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah.
And then I also don't know if Taya Valkyrie and John Morrison won it on the same night, but they were champions at the same time.
Well, you were in
So Taya will have to fact check me.
That is a small group of people that you are in there.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember seeing the photo on social media.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm just so happy for you guys.
Thank you.
Like,
yeah.
to both have your championships, same night, same company. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think it was particularly cool for me, and I cried about this right before. Lance Storm was mine and Jordan's producer for that match, and as his match is wrapping up, Lance is like, okay, we got about, like, 3 minutes, we should head up. And I was like, I don't want to see him win. I had been the champion before, I was going into winning my 3rd world championship. Like, I knew how that felt. But I think for Steve, not knowing how that felt, being in this position for the first time, and he's been wrestling just as long as I have, just about 13 years, like, to finally be getting that opportunity, to finally be getting that moment. Not that it was way more special than my moment was going to be, but I just felt that so much more for him, because I know what the first time feels like. And I was excited for him to get that feeling and that validation of, like, oh, I fucking earned this. And if he chooses to tell his story one day about all the stuff he's been through and his journey in NXT, and I think that people will realize that validation was, like, just that much more special.
So you're saying you didn't want to see it?
I didn't want to see it
What?
because I was going to cry.
You just told this wonderful story about how...
I'm almost crying talking about it. I didn't want to see it because I knew, like, literally 3 minutes later I have to go wrestle. So, like, let me not cry for you and be so excited for you. But he waited until after my match in Gorilla, and the moment I came through, he was right there. And there's a picture of him giving me a big hug and us kissing, and it was like, okay, we can have our moment now.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have it before.
Have you watched it back?
I watched his match.
Yeah.
But
Have you watched him win the championship?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I've not watched mine, but yeah.
Why not? You don't watch your own work?
I'm very critical of myself.
I think that's a good thing, though, right?
But to the point of, like, if I liked it beforehand, I'll watch it and completely destroy it. And then I'm like, okay, now I hate it. So I liked what me and Jordan did together. There was a couple things that in the moment I was like, I didn't like that. But I was like, I like it. I don't want to ruin it for myself, because I will.
But sometimes there's something, and I don't know this from experience because I haven't worked a match, but sometimes there's things that don't feel right in the moment, but you watch it back and you go, oh, that actually looked fine.
Not me. And I harp. Like, I'm crazy in terms of, like, I will lay in bed for like 3 weeks after and think about it. No. Like I know myself and I'm like, I can't. There's some matches and I'm like, it was fine. Let's close the book and move on, because my brain won't move on if I watch it and I pick it apart.
Who do you think in wrestling backstage that you can trust their opinion when they tell you something's good? Because so often you go to the back and they go, yeah, that was great. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Who's going to shoot you straight?
Madison Rayne, for sure. Not only is she like my best friend in real life, but she has known me since I was 19 years old doing Knockouts Knockdown. She has seen like every phase of my life. So like personal and professional. So I trust her in like a nice way to let me down if need be. Steve also is one of those people who like critiques me in a way that it's like not offensive, or like I feel like wrestling relationships can get like really tense when you talk about wrestling and you critique each other's wrestling. Yeah. But I feel like he lets me down in like a gentle way where I feel like I'm very aggressive with him. But I can trust his opinion 100%.
But maybe, you can trust it and you know that it's coming from a good place.
Yes.
It's to make you an even better performer in the ring.
Yeah. Jordynne is another one of those people who we constantly are sending each other stuff back and forth, or being like, I didn't like this, or I didn't like this, or what do you think I could do differently here? Like, she's my greatest opponent ever. So if I want like a true opinion on like, what did you think about that? I can go to Jordynne Grace.
What is there left for you to do in wrestling? You've done so much.
I got to win the AEW Women's World Championship. Yeah, I think a championship at AEW. I think going there and just knowing the type of environment it is, and the complete new set of girls that I've never worked with. Like, I knew it was going to be a challenge to, I don't want to say conform, but like relearn a system. I had been comfortable at TNA for so long. I knew the system. I knew the people. I knew the position I was in. I was on top there. So there was more leeway for me to give my opinion or pitch ideas. Coming into AEW, you kind of need to earn those rights all over again. So I think, yes, there's still so much left for me to do. I feel like I'm just now feeling like myself again there, feeling like, okay, this is the Virtuosa. There was, I've been there 9.5 months now. That first stretch, it was like, I don't know what I'm doing or who I am. I'm working a brand new like system with television and times, and I felt really thrown off. So I feel like now I'm finally getting in a groove that will propel me. I
think people forget this is starting a new job. Like, sure, you have the background of wrestling and all these other places, but it's starting a new job.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, learning the ins and outs of it, both on camera and behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. And you're forming relationships with brand new people, brand new producers. Luckily I had Madison there, and I had Scotty Too Hottie, who I knew from NXT. And, I know Pat Buck and I know Sanjay Dutt, but I don't know Tony Khan. I don't know Jerry Lynn. I don't know, RJ City, who's such a big hand in all the women's stuff. Like, I don't know Jen Pepperman, who came in. So creating those relationships and forming bonds and trust with each other, so they know I could put Deonna in that position. Like, I also didn't want to come there and rely on like, this is all the stuff I did over here. Yeah. So it's not going to transfer over here. Like, there's just no way. It's two completely different companies. But if you look at those two different companies and you look at how TNA runs, it's not live television every week. AEW is live television every week.
And it's in front of a pretty big crowd too.
Yes. So, even just from my debut in New Jersey, I couldn't recall the last time I had wrestled or even spoken on a microphone and cut a promo in front of 5,000 or 6,000 people. I don't think I had ever done that. Just the way the systems are run are so different. Doing live commercial breaks and what it takes to go into a commercial break and then come back out of a commercial break are things that TNA wrestlers don't always have to worry about because it's not live commercial breaks. So there's a little bit of fudge room, So I, going into that system, knew this is going to be an adjustment. I didn't realize how big of an adjustment it was because I had to like really figure out who the Virtuosa was going to be in a new space. But it was relearning how to wrestle on live television every week.
And a lot of the time you spent in WWE was either in NXT, small audience there, and I guess the Performance Center where they do NXT. Mm-hmm. And then during the pandemic, when things were just a little funky all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. Even when I went up to Raw for like a few weeks, I wrestled Asuka on a Christmas special. So we taped 2 episodes that night. And Asuka and I had 2 segments, but it was a taped show. So you didn't even really have to worry about commercial breaks then. Then when I kept going up to the main roster, I was doing main events. So it's just like, you have 8 minutes, go have fun. There is no commercial break. It's just straight 8 minutes. So even that, like, to go into AEW and be told, you know, you have a total 12-minute segment, and however that's broken up, like at TNA, I don't think I had any less than 12 minutes ever. At the very end, when Trinity was there, we had 28 minutes on a pay-per-view special before, which at the time was like, holy crap, what do you do with 28 minutes? But then I go into AEW and it's like, what do I do with 9? You know what I mean? Like, having to reshape how I tell stories in the ring has been completely different. So it was, I don't think people realized as big of an adjustment as it was for me.
What do you do with 28 minutes with Trinity / Naomi?
Oh my God. You do everything. Luckily, that particular match happened. We did a UK tour last year, and Gail Kim was the special guest referee. So we had a lot of fun with Gail, and Gail and I had an interaction at the end of the match. And you know, you could. The UK crowd is so great that you could really like take your time and take those moments and like interact with them, and they chant and they sing back to you. And so that was the perfect environment, I think, to have 28 minutes. But holy crap, like, we had a solid 28 minutes. And it was...
Did you do everything you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if the crowd's really chanting and you're leaning into that, maybe that takes up some of the time for the things that you had planned.
No, we got the whole match in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of chants, I thought it was so cool when you wrestled Thunder Rosa recently.
Thank you.
And the crowd chanted women's wrestling.
Yeah.
I was like, heck yeah.
Which was crazy because we were the first match of the night at Double or Nothing.
Yep.
And like, we didn't do any, like, the wrestling we were doing was not like some crazy intricate like women's wrestling. It was very like just a hot crowd with 2 great women's wrestlers, and they liked what we did. But I remember thinking as they're chanting it, looking around like, I don't think we really warranted women's wrestling chants, but I will take what I can get.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
That crowd was hot.
You know what? A lot of people online shit on the fact that we were on the pre-show. And I have said this before, but I think you sell people on the pre-show. Like, the idea is it's free. Anyone could watch it. If you aren't sold on the pay-per-view itself yet and you see really good wrestling on the pre-show, we sold them on buying the pay-per-view. That's my job. And so to get that type of reaction with that audience in Vegas, like, if they weren't sure, they were damn sure by the time we were done.
Yeah. I saw you recently started working with Cezar.
Yeah.
Am I saying his name right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cezar? I say Cezar. I say Cezar, but maybe it's Cezar.
I'm just taking this from Ethan Page, who is so jacked now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. He is incredible. Like, and I love that he's in Orlando. So I drive over Monday or Thursday or whatever, depending on my schedule that week, and get like an insane workout. And then it takes 40 minutes and then I get to go home. Like, it's not even like I have to make this work today. It's in and out and easy. And
he's dialing in your nutrition too?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, that's always like my biggest part is I don't eat enough. And like, my sleep schedule is horrible. I don't sleep at night. So I'm like, you know, an 11 a.m. noon type of person. Like, so I just don't have enough time to like get all my meals in by the end of the day. So with him, like, being able to tweak what I eat and when I eat it. And also, like, I'm Italian. I want to eat pasta all the time. I'm a carb queen. So for him to be able to work that in where I can eat pasta for every meal is amazing for me. It's like the best of every world.
I think he titled the video recently on YouTube, "I want to get my 6-pack back."
Yeah.
Has he given you a timeline of when this is going to happen?
He tells me he like hammers it into me. He gets annoyed because I follow the meal plan. But again, like, it's just my sleep schedule.
You're like, I love pasta.
I love pasta, but I don't get enough meals in the day. So that's, and he's like, if you could just give me 12 weeks where you wake up early enough to get all your meals in, my workouts aren't the problem. It's the meals. If you could do this for 12 weeks, you would be like ready for a bodybuilding competition.
Okay.
And I'm like, that's exciting to hear, but like, I don't know that I could commit to that.
Of course, if you can commit to be the wrestler that you are,
yeah,
you could do anything.
Yes, and I commit to it like when I was in Japan, and that's where that quote came from. When I was in Japan, I had said to Shayna Baszler, who was there with me, like, what do I need to do? I was working out with the gym in Japan, and like the workouts were great, but what nutrition wise do I need to do to have like 6-pack washboard abs? For my first match was against Toni Storm for one of the championships at Stardom at the time. Like, I want to look amazing to work in Cork and Hall for the first time. This is a dream come true. I'm gonna cry, and I did. I want to look amazing. Help me. And she was like, okay, great. Don't eat carbs, like not even vegetable carbs. So it was like 3 weeks leading up to that. And all I had was like chicken, some kind of ground meat that I could find in the grocery store. I don't know what it was. Let's hope it was ground turkey. An avocado.
That sounds miserable.
It was miserable. But then I will say, like, we drank lots of alcohol, so that was like kind of the carbs. Like that was the trade-off. Like I'm not eating rice and pasta, but I'm drinking lots of alcohol for 3 weeks. And then I was ripped. Like I have never seen myself look so like ready for a competition kind of look. Like if I look at that picture, like my face is sunk in and I'm like, oh, that's like, I did it healthily, but like wouldn't be sustainable for me. And that's what I was talking about. Like, I want to look like that.
I worked with a nutritionist last year, AJ Sims, Cement Factory. I turned 40 last year. I wanted to be in the best shape of my life. And the thing that was great about it is it keeps you accountable. Like, you know, he gives you the meals to eat. He gives you the workouts. And at the end of the week, you check in. And if you don't look a certain way, it's like, okay.
Yes.
Where did you slip here?
Yeah.
Like, well, I really like chocolate chip cookies.
So I said that to Cezar. I was like, you know, I trained some like hormonal stuff. Like, I really crave chocolate right now. Like, I feel like a 12-year-old that needs a candy bar. And he was like, that's fine. Like, do you need the whole candy bar or do you just need like a handful of chocolate chips?
Taste, yeah.
Yes. And I was like, honestly, like a handful of 2 chocolate chips is enough. I just have never craved chocolate before. And he was like, no problem. And like literally 12 hours later, I had a new macros that included chocolate in it. So that's what's been amazing is like, it's really custom to like what I like to eat. And even like we went to Disney yesterday, like I didn't log anything because I had my Mickey pretzel and I had ice cream and I enjoyed myself. Yeah. But he's like, okay, and today we're getting back on the wagon. Like, that's what I need. I need the accountability, but also the flexibility to still feel like I could have a treat.
Yeah. I went to WrestleMania here last year and he's like, all right, can you send me a list of all of the restaurants inside SoFi? And he's like, all right, why don't you eat this here, and try to sneak some protein powder? And I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We made it work. But the cool thing was being able to be accountable to somebody.
Yes.
To be able to say like, all right, if this is the goal we're reaching towards and we're headed towards, these are the steps that we need to take to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I needed. Like, and I was starting a new job. Like I wanted to feel my best and I wanted to look my best. And like the internet had come for me for not looking my best. And for me, it was just kind of like, okay, a realization of like, there's work I could be doing for myself and I'm not going to do it for the troll on the internet who wants to tell me I'm fat today. I'm going to do it for me. And I'm going to put the work in for me to feel like I'm my best and I could put my best work out there.
But the internet also defended you a lot too.
Oh my gosh, yes, they did. And like, that's the unfortunate beauty of the internet, I think, is like when people come for you for such silly things like your body or whatever it is, like, I wanted to defend myself. I felt like I needed to say something. And what I said, I mean, I feel in my heart and soul, like, I'm so much more than what my body looks like. I'm so much more than a number on the scale. Like, first of all, I've never been a size small, but my husband loves me whether I would be a small or I'd be an extra large. Like, he thinks I'm beautiful no matter what. And honestly, that's all that matters. But I have a college degree. I'm working on getting a master's degree. I have worked in every company in the world. There's a reason people want to work with me because my body of work, not my body. And for people to agree with that and then say such nice things, like I cried because the internet hurt my feelings, but then I cried because the love I felt from my friends and my family. It's
so sad that we're in a time right now where the minority can be so loud that it feels like it feels like it's the majority, when instead it's just a handful of people who are unhappy in their own lives and want to try to take it out on other people. I
rewatched the Taylor Swift documentary that's on Netflix. I'm a big new Swiftie. And one of the first things she says in the documentary is how much her life has always been dependent on people's happiness. And I heard that and was like, that's wrestling. Like our self-worth and satisfaction comes from pleasing other people and doing good for other people. And we put ourselves second in that list of if the crowd reacts and the crowd chants women's wrestling, then I did my job. Yeah. If the crowd chants, holy shit, now I've done my job. But really, we need to be able to find that peace and that happiness of like, no, I feel like I did a good job.
Yeah.
I did it for me. And I think in wrestling, it's as wrestlers as a whole in this entire industry, we put ourselves and our satisfaction on the back burner for such a small majority. How many of those people that came for me or come for anyone on Twitter are actually buying a ticket to come see me at AEW in Newark, New Jersey? Probably none of them. How many of those people are coming to meet me at a meet and greet and say how much they love my work, or how much they love the picture I posted of my dogs, or how's my husband, or how's this, or how's that? Probably none.
Yeah.
So for me, this year, I really needed to like do soul searching and dig down deep to find like what satisfies me about myself, about my work, about my home life, that you can come for me all you want on Twitter, but it's not going to make me cry again.
Yeah, it sounds like you found like a peace.
Yeah, I think for me, and I experienced this when I was in NXT too, like all of the bullshit that you don't realize goes into wrestling, and the politics and the people not liking each other, or the bad matches, or the internet, like we don't sign up for that. We sign up to be wrestlers so we can get in the ring and do the wrestling. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for the professional wrestling. Everything else, like, you don't see that as a kid. You just see the lights and you know, the WrestleMania. You know what I mean? You don't see all the backstage stuff. So going into NXT and dealing with all that backstage stuff, which I never had to deal with before, really affected me as a person and made me fall out of love with wrestling. And coming out of that, I realized, like, I have given so much since I was 9 years old of my life and my soul to wanting to achieve being in WWE. And this is what happened when I was in WWE. That was devastating. But I can't let wrestling like devastate my whole life. So what can I do, and what can I give outside of this, and how can I have other interests and other hobbies? And that's why I went back to school, because it was like, I love history. I'm such a history nerd. I'm such a history buff. Like, I just like to do that for fun on the side. Let me, because I didn't even know if I wanted to keep wrestling, have a backup plan. And I always thought, like, I need a backup plan. I tried to go to school, I quit for wrestling. Like, let me go back to this and earn a college degree and earn something that no one could take from me. No one could say, like, you didn't deserve that, or you didn't earn that. Because also in wrestling, someone else is making those decisions. My success in AEW isn't always going to be based on what I put forward in the ring. My success in NXT had nothing to do with the body of work I put out there in the ring. It had to do with so-and-so not liking me, or this drama, or that drama, or being a 5'2" brunette, or whatever it was. Me earning a college degree, no one could say wasn't me doing that for me. So I felt like I needed to find peace, and I'm relearning that again now. And hobbies and things I could love that weren't wrestling related, because wrestling had been my whole life.
As the stage grows that you perform on, and the support grows, on the flip side of that, the detractors also grow as well. So it's, even though the support may be growing, unfortunately, the other side of it grows as well. And sometimes that just sounds so loud. But the fact that you know who you are is really the only thing that matters.
Yeah. And that's what I had to learn, and I think, again, taking that piece of like, I don't like how this makes me feel, so I'm going to do a lot of work over here to make me feel good and to boost my confidence over here and to do things that no one could take from me, made me feel even more successful.
Is it a master's in history?
So I have a bachelor's in history.
Okay,
I'm actually going back for my master's in political science.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a political, something down the line.
I always tell Steve, like, one day I'm going to be Congresswoman of Florida. And he's like, okay. If that's what, he's so supportive. He's like, if that's what you want, then you go for that. But it's just, that's what's easy for me. That's what interests me. That's what's natural for me. So I'm like, maybe in a year I'm going to hate it and try something else.
Sure.
I tried one semester of PR and I was like, I don't like this. Like, so I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like who Deonna wants to be, because my wrestling career is not winding down. But I've been wrestling for 13 years.
Yeah.
We want to have a family. We want to start a life together that maybe I can't wrestle for. So what will fulfill me outside of that?
But even if it's 13 more years, that means you're the halfway part right now.
Absolutely.
So then it's like, all right, you, I guess, need to at some point start considering what life is after wrestling.
Yeah, what that looks like. And I think that's a big piece of just like what we've been doing this year is like, what else do we want to get into, and what do we want to use our voice for positive in the world? And yeah, do we want to go back to school? Do we want to look to buy land? What do we want to do that's not wrestling related that's going to build the rest of our lives?
5 acres with dogs.
Yep, that's the plan.
What else is it that you're working on outside of wrestling that maybe we don't see?
Yeah, so right now we are in the very, very early stages of working with Tunnels to Towers, which is mainly a 9/11 survivor and first responder organization where the owner and founder of this organization actually lost family in 9/11. And this was kind of his way to give back to other families who did the same. and they pay off mortgages for first responders who unfortunately lose their lives and their family is left with all of that to deal with. They have pieces of to help end veteran homelessness, which is something Steve and I are really interested in. They do 5Ks all over the country. Like, it is just such a first responder and veteran first organization. And obviously Steve, being a veteran, and the things I've seen us being together that he goes through with even just like the VA and the pieces of things that should be so easy are so overwhelming and so frustrating. I think going through that together, it was like, we have such a big voice and such a big platform we can use to make more people aware of the trials and the tribulations that our veterans go through, that's often not talked about, and also first responders who deal with a lot of the same similar things. So it was just, being presented that opportunity was like, that's something we have to do. We have to use our voice for the good of that. It's
so good to see you again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming coming into the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Great to catch up with you. And I'm going to ask you the question that I ask at the end of every interview.
Okay.
Gratitude's so big for me. It's a cornerstone of my life.
Yeah.
I live every day with so much gratitude for the things that I have. What are 3 things in your life that you're grateful for?
Oh gosh, I am first and foremost grateful for my husband. I am grateful for our beautiful home, and I am grateful for our family's constant support.
I love that.
Yeah.
Great to see you. Congrats on everything.
Thank you so much.
And can't wait to see what's next for you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.